On the back cover of GU7, Mixmag editor Dom Phillips writes, "If he was leather, he'd be Gucci, a car, Mercedes, a footballer, Ryan Giggs, a shaker, a mover, a maker, the expert. The kind of man you want in charge, in control, at the center of things. But most of all, he's a DJ." This quote accurately paints Paul Oakenfold's stardom in the late 1990s. Compared to the initial intimate roster of Global Underground, Tony DeVee with GU1 and GU5, Nick Warren with GU3, and John Digweed with GU6, Oakenfold's fame span outside the world of underground dance music. Beyond his contributions to the birth of dance music culture in Britain, Oakenfold had remixed everyone from the Happy Mondays to U2, but his ear never left the underground. Inside the GU7 album notes, Phillips cuts to Oakenfold's core. He's a DJ who cares deeply about his music, how well it's put together, how new it sounds, how right it feels. For young listeners on CD players in 1998, Global Underground 7 was an introduction to the world of underground dance music. For the clubbers of that era, the mix resurrects emotions of an underground scene at its peak. For everyone, GU7 brings back memories of good friends, long nights, and simpler times. So why is Paul Oakenfold's Global Underground 7 in New York such a nostalgic album for the Global Underground era? The first page of the travelogue tells the tale of Paul's holiday to New York with Trevor Fung in 1984. In Paul's words, "It just blew me away. We had 2 weeks there and got up to everything. We saw Studio 54 and the Paradise Garage. We had it big time." For Paul Oakenfold and other British youths, a trip to New York was a big deal. Oakenfold soaked up all the city had to offer. Early DJ influences included Larry Levan at the Paradise Garage. There was John Jellybean Benitez of Funhouse. The hip-hop side of things with Grandmaster Flash, Cool DJ Red Alert, Chuck Chillout, and Africa Bambaataa. Oakenfold says, New York also offered a new experience. The city was dangerous, exciting, fresh, and diverse. Amazing DJs like Larry Levan and also Frankie Knuckles and David Morales would play all night, something completely different than anything Oakenfold experienced in London at the time. New York would become Oakenfold's second home, spending some time living in Spanish Harlem. Trips to New York City would become an annual occurrence for Oakenfold, first on holiday with his friends and then as a DJ, and its influence shaped Oakenfold's musical taste and style. Upon its creation, the Global Underground Mix series helped shape the identity of the superstar DJ. The series began in 1996 with Tony DeVee in Tel Aviv. The next release was Nick Warren in Prague, followed by Oakenfold in Oslo, DeVee again in Tokyo, and then John Digweed in Sydney. All of these DJs were from England, and they were flying to clubs around the world, bringing with them the UK sound. New York clubs like Tunnel and Twilo were flying the GU DJs, along with other British stars like Sasha and Carl Cox, across the Atlantic once a month to bring the UK sound to New York City clubs. This British sound was captivating underground audiences across the world, and the time was right for Global Underground to feature an American city. It was time for Paul Oakenfold to return to New York. Global Underground, it's in the title. It's global dance music for the underground scene. That's Paul Oakenfold breaking down the Global Underground title. But what are the foundations of the trance and progressive underground scenes in the 1990s? Oakenfold outlines 5 distinguishing characteristics. Much fewer records were being made compared to today. Oakenfold says his record label, Perfecto Records, used to receive 20, maybe 30 demos a week, compared to the 150 a week he receives today. Oakenfold says it was very, very difficult to get these records, and you always want what you can't have. It was very difficult to produce a record. A producer would have to be signed by a record label, and the limitations of technology elongated the production process. This allowed producers to pour their creativity into the process, into everything from creating the sound to the artwork on the sleeve's cover. They're made different. They sound different. There's more artistic capability and creativity going into making those tunes. The technology wasn't there. So much would go into it: the arrangement, the structure, the key, everything. Records were vetted for quality control, first endorsement, A record label would have to sign your record. There was no SoundCloud or Spotify, and in order to release a record, you'd have to partner with a record label. After that, you would produce your record. But before it was released, the record label would shop the record to remixers, and the second endorsement of the record would be made by the producers who signed on to remix the record. The third endorsement, perhaps the most important, would be in the clubs, on the dance floor, dancing to music. During each gig, the DJ could gauge the response to the record before its release. This brings us to our fourth characteristic, and perhaps the most defining of this era. DJs would properly break a record 6 or 7 weeks before a record's release. A DJ would begin to break a record on dance floors across the world, introducing it to clubbers for the first time. Some of the most nostalgic memories for clubbers are the memories of hearing these records for the first time in this era, not only because the music was so good, but you never knew if you were going to hear that record again. There was no Shazam, there was no smartphones, and in Oakenfold's words, it was different. It was so different. Because you go somewhere and you hear these tunes, you'd be like, oh my god, where can I get that tune? You can't get that tune. Then suddenly Global Underground would come out and you would hear that tune on a CD. That's how it worked. There was a clear delineation between a DJ and a producer. The DJ and producer had separate skill sets. Song selection and mix progressions were the practiced, cultivated skills of the DJ. The result was that the mix emerged as a new art form, where you can take your audience on a journey, compared to simply a showcase for your own productions. Global Underground 7 is great because the music is great. Oakenfold embarks on a melodic journey that touches trance, progressive, drum and bass, and downbeat selections. There is always a story that you tell with music. The arrangement and structure and the key. What do I want to say? You can put your guard down and feel the music. I can take you on a melodic journey. Oh my god, I've just gone from drum and bass to trance to progressive, and now just listen to a vocal song. You're on a journey. Highlights of the first CD include the introduction, Mystica's Bliss, Mystica Mix, Jamie Myerson's Rescue Me, Taste Experience's Somersault, and Nailin & Kane's remix of Every Time by Lustral. Oakenfold received Nailin & Kane's remix well before its release, and his treatment of the record shows how tight-knit the underground scene was in 97 and 98. Despite not releasing the record on his own label Perfecto, Oakenfold endorsed and promoted the remix in clubs across the world, and the record now stands as a classic of the era. CD2 is a proper journey, and highlights include Ambrosia's Inside Your Arms, Leaving Planet Earth by Talisman and Hudson, and Junk Project's Composure. The release of GU7 was a moment of arrival for Global Underground. The world's biggest DJ in America's largest city, in 1998, Paul Oakenfold would be named DJ Mag's #1 DJ, and his New York Global Underground release cemented Global Underground as the world's premier underground series. Following GU7, the next 2 additions to the Global Underground roster would be Sasha and Danny Tenaglia, which speaks for itself. Music is a personal experience, but Global Underground 7 invokes a common feeling of nostalgia amongst the Global Underground community. It is the most viewed Global Underground mix on YouTube, but the true testaments to the mix live in the comments. Andrew Lewis, 4 years ago. Does anybody else get nostalgia that actually hurts your stomach? Instantly transported back to a time where there wasn't a care in the world. This is the soundtrack to the best years of my life. Philip Levins, 8 months ago. I'm reading these heartfelt comments with a huge smile on my face and love in my heart. I feel like I know you all, the sunsets and sunrises we shared, the very best times of our lives. Peace and love, brothers and sisters, forever connected. Lee Vincent, 5 years ago. The moment the music started, I had an instant massive rush of memories and emotions, back to Hong Kong and Thailand 98-99. Best mates, best times of my life, best music, especially this. So what makes GU7 so nostalgic? It's Paul Oakenfold returning to his second home, New York City. It's the UK sound taking on America. It's the amount of work that went into each record selected for the mix. It's how intimate the underground was at this time. But what it's really about is the shared memories of an entire underground scene. Memories of simpler times, long drives, all-nighters, best friends, and pure ecstasy. These memories are strings of the fabric that holds the world of underground dance music, the Global Underground, together.